Hello, and welcome to the Margin of Sanity podcast. Thank you for joining me. Today, we're going to talk about ULTA Beauty, why I bought it, why I sold it, and why I might come crawling back one of these days. I'm just getting started here on Substack, and to the people who have already subscribed and followed and commented and all this stuff, it's really cool. I'm having a lot of fun expressing these ideas. I mean, I used to just think about them and write them to myself, and now I get to explore investment ideas in a public setting, and it's actually really cool. So I just want to say thank you and welcome. And just to note, if you're listening on a podcast player like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you want to go back and reread some of this or take a look at some of the charts I'll post, all of this information, this entire write-up is available totally free on the Margin of Sanity Substack, and I'll put the link in the show notes. All right, ULTA Beauty. Let's get into it. I purchased my very first shares of ULTA Beauty on August 8th, 2024 for a price of $325 a share. For those of you just listening, I have in the screenshot above a trade confirmation from Charles Schwab that just simply confirms what I'm saying. But why am I trying to prove this to you? Well, because about 1 week later, it was revealed that Berkshire Hathaway had also bought ULTA Beauty for a share price of about $400 a share. Am I bragging? Totally. But mostly, I want you to believe me when I say that my decision to enter into this position had nothing to do with Buffett or Berkshire. Well, at least not directly. I discovered ULTA Beauty after I'd finished reading the book Warren Buffett and the Interpretation of Financial Statements by Mary Buffett and David Clark, a book I highly recommend to any active investor. Basically, I read this book and began obsessively looking for companies that fit the criteria outlined within it. Mostly, that meant looking for companies with a low pre-tax earnings yield, manageable debt, and a high return on equity. Moreover, I wanted a company with a sustainable competitive advantage that I felt I understood. Finally, I wanted a company that had a history of returning excess cash to shareholders, ideally in the form of buybacks. And man, ULTA fit the bill. I had only sort of heard of this company, but even a quick glance at valuation, margins, balance sheet, and the return on equity, return on assets seemed to tell the story of a very solid company. Not only that, but they had been buying back a ton of shares over the last decade. Seemed to me like I was onto something. If my mouth wasn't watering yet, it was about to. As a male who has owned basically one razor in his entire life and could care less what shampoo he uses, I didn't have much personal experience with this product market. I did, however, have one micro-sized case study: my girlfriend. God bless my cheap, coupon clipping, no credit card having, budget airline shopping, but of course very beautiful girlfriend. It had only been a few days since we had been out running errands, and she had brought us out of our way to some random store that sold a teeny tiny jar of what appeared to be white goop. This white goop cost €35. I was shocked because usually she is extremely cost conscious. As I stood in line, I was already thinking to myself how cheap that must be to ship and how little shelf space it takes up. I was imagining the margins on something like that, thinking they must be huge. On our walk back, I started prodding her for more market research, as I occasionally do, and she occasionally tolerates me doing. I learned that, much to my dismay, this particular company made many products, and this was the only one she liked. She also explained that there are seemingly infinite brands and product lines for all this stuff. Things like blush, eyeliner, moisturizer, conditioner, hand soap, face soap, nail polish remover, mascara, lip gloss, lipstick, foundation, concealer, and something called a kabuki brush. That is a very incomplete list, by the way, but I'll spare you the full litany. So I asked her, how much do you spend on this stuff a month? And she sort of just gave me that look that says, don't ask stupid questions. So I dropped it. I also dropped the whole idea of trying to find a way to invest in it, figuring the market was likely too saturated and competitive to find a real winner. Fast forward a few weeks, and I've stumbled upon ULTA Beauty's illustrious financial figures, and the whole conversation in the drugstore comes back to me. It clicks. In a market like this, you don't buy the product, you buy the retailer. So I run into the living room and I yell, "Baby, have you ever heard of ULTA Beauty?" No? Huh. Weird. And then I remember that we live in Europe, and she is European. Is it possible ULTA doesn't operate here in Europe? Turns out Ulta Beauty only operates in the USA, so it makes sense that she hadn't heard of it. So I started asking her more questions about her and her friends' buying habits around beauty products, and I came to a few conclusions. I'm going to do some generalizing about women here, so, just be ready for that. 1. Women don't skimp on beauty. 2. Women don't stop using beauty products in a recession, or a global pandemic, by the way. 3. Women enjoy shopping for and buying beauty products. 4. Beauty is a form of self-care to many women. 5. Women love trying out new beauty products. So after my lovely girlfriend enlightened me about her and her friends' beauty buying customs, I really started getting excited about Ulta. I'm imagining tiny jars of goop and kabuki brushes flying off shelves to happy customers. I'm picturing discounts being given to advertise new products in stores brimming with excited eyeballs and full wallets. I'm seeing the margins, the buybacks, and the expansion. Oh God, please let there be expansion. And most importantly, perhaps, I'm thinking about a male-dominated investor pool completely underpricing a money-printing machine. I calmed down a bit and begin researching Ulta Beauty, its business model, and its competitors. Turns out, Ulta Beauty operates about 1,445 standalone retail locations across 50 states, as well as about 600 locations within various Target stores. They have an exceptionally strong loyalty program with 44.6 million active members, which is, by the way, about 26% of the US female population. And those loyalty members also make up about 96% of their total sales. The focus is variety. Ulta offers a wide range of products, from mass market beauty to high-end and everything in between. They also offer in-store hair salons and something called a brow bar, where customers can get their eyebrows done. When I bought them, they were trading for a trailing 12 months pre-tax yield of about 10.5%, which amounts to a PE of about 14, which is cheaper than it pretty much had ever been going back, a decade or more. As you can see in the table above, and for those of you just listening, the table above shows the stock price on top of the earnings per share on top of the PE ratio. Anyway, as you can see above, or imagine if you're listening, the stock was likely cheap because net income had flattened since about mid-2022. But relative to the capital employed in the business, Ulta is getting outstanding returns with ROE in the mid-50% range. A 50% ROE, for those not familiar with the metric, is really, really good, if you can keep it up. Moreover, Ulta had been buying back shares like the devil. They went from 65 million shares outstanding to 47 million in a decade. The margins don't look amazing at a glance, about a 10% net margin, but then compare those margins, which are growing, to that of Target in the table below. So for those of you just listening, Ulta's net margin is, anywhere from 12 to 10%, and I would say Target's is probably anywhere from about 6 to 3.5%. And finally, Ulta is doing all of this with $500 million in cash and no debt, only capital leases. Is this a retailer in 2025? Because it does not look like one to me. I figured if they can grow revenue in the mid-double digits, expand margins a bit, and keep buying back shares, I could expect an earnings per share growth rate of close to 12 or 15% on an initial pre-tax yield investment of 10.5%. If they were able to expand the business into other countries, then my God, the stock would be a steal at this price. It should be noted, though, that at that time, nothing else I owned really looked attractive. So while Ulta may not have seemed like a grand slam, it did appear to be an easy base hit for a market-beating return. So I bought it. I bought some at $325 and some at $330. And then something crazy happened. Berkshire bought it. I couldn't believe it. On Thursday, August 14th, it was announced that in Q2, Berkshire had acquired roughly $266 million of Ulta stock at an average price of about $400 a share. The stock jumped and continued to rally up to about $404 a share. I waited patiently. Realistically, this was not a large position for Berkshire. $266 million is like pennies for them. So I waited. The stock cooled off and I bought more. All the while with a smug self-satisfaction that Buffett agreed with me. This was not the first time, however, that I had reveled in the comfort that Berkshire liked something I already owned. so I decided not to pay up too much for it just because it had the Oracle stamp of approval. And who knows if it was even worn behind the purchase. Good thing I waited, because they sold it all the following quarter. C'est la vie. The one plus was that up until that point, I hadn't acquired as large a position as I would have liked. So when Buffett sold and the stock dropped, I bought more. And I built my Ulta position to about 4% of my portfolio, and then I stopped. So far, I've only told you what I've liked about Ulta, but there was a reason its earnings had lagged. A few reasons, actually. Saturation, e-commerce, and Sephora. I loved everything I saw from Ulta, but there were 3 hurdles I could see ahead of it. 1. US market saturation. Until now, Ulta has existed entirely in the US. They have done a fantastic job of growing a powerful and profitable business there, but their runway in the US has all but run out. The expansion into Target stores was a nice boost, but ultimately there are only so many locations where you can put an Ulta store and have it succeed. And there were basically already stores in all of those places. That meant that growth would either have to come from sales volume, same-store sales growth, or expansion into new geographies. Management was working on both, but my hopes lay mostly in some sort of push into Mexico. Ulta's management has spoken a good bit about how well their border stores have performed, and they put that forward as evidence an expansion into the Mexican market would go well. I tended to agree here. I didn't see any reason the people of Mexico wouldn't love Ulta the way their neighbors to the north do. I also figured there could be expansion into South America or Europe that would prove a profitable growth path for this lean and mean beauty retailer. I'd rank this challenge as doable. 2. E-commerce. The story of Amazon and other e-commerce platforms crushing brick-and-mortar retail is nothing new. Toys R Us, Radio Shack, Sears, The Gap, Best Buy, and Lord knows how many others have been dragged into a bloody slogfest with cheaper and more convenient online sellers. Just capitalism doing its thing, I guess. But Ulta has thus far managed to keep up and actually grow its margins, expanding all over the country and returning capital to shareholders in the meantime. So far, so good. But there's another reason I wasn't as terrified of e-commerce as other investors. Ulta has a palpable online presence. More and more of its sales come from its app or website, and those customers can often get the same day or next day delivery because Ulta's stores can double as a warehouse. Seems like someone took a page out of Walmart's playbook. And Walmart is a great analog to Ulta here because so much of what they offer is variety. And with beauty products, variety is key. The other thing Ulta offers is the enjoyable experience of shopping for beauty products in store. As I mentioned earlier, for many women, the experience of going out to buy beauty supplies is a joy, not an errand. Plus, it's hard to try on makeup or smell a million hand creams on a smartphone. I'm not trying to claim that Amazon doesn't eat some of Ulta's lunch here, they totally do. But there's still been plenty left over for buybacks thanks to unique advantages of selling something customers actually enjoy buying. I'll rank this challenge as limited. Number 3. Freaking Sephora is the bane of my existence. There's nothing worse than your company's single largest competitor being owned by a parent company that doesn't report its margins or sales or really any useful data in their annual report. Louis Vuitton owns Sephora, and I really wish they didn't. If I could see Sephora's margins, I could answer this question much more easily, but I can't. So that's just what it is, I guess. Sephora is a high-end beauty retailer that directly competes with Ulta, quite ferociously, I might add. ULTA Beauty may have been first to implement their store-in-store partnership with Target, but Sephora was right behind them with Kohl's. And while I think Target plus Ulta is greater than Sephora plus Kohl's, I still don't like the idea of Sephoras around every corner. Reason being that while there is a notable amount of customer loyalty to Ulta thanks to their best-in-class rewards program, a lot of this stuff still comes down to convenience. Most of the women I talked to preferred the in-store experience of Ulta to Sephora. It was less pushy and snobby, but they also told me they would probably shop at Sephora if it was closer. The lack of data on Sephora made it a black box for me, but I had confidence that Ulta's product variety, one that includes mass-market beauty, would give it an edge. You'll spend less at Ulta. You can get one fancy thing and a few other cheaper, more fungible items and spend less than you would at Sephora. I rank this challenge annoying but livable. Okay, back to the story. Where were we? Right. I was long Ulta to the tune of 4% of my portfolio at an average price of about $350 a share. I bought it, Berkshire bought it, Berkshire sold it, I bought it again, and then Q2 earnings beat the pessimistic analyst expectations. I was feeling pretty good about this position, I must admit. I knew it wouldn't change my life, but I felt it was a sensible idea. Until I went home for Thanksgiving. I returned to my native country of the USA in November of 2024, along with my new European equity analyst, aka my girlfriend, and we enjoyed strolling around my usual stomping grounds and taking in the sights. Throughout the trip, we made little stops into various stores: CVS, Walgreens, TJ Maxx, Target, Walmart, etc. Mostly, we were picking up small items for our new apartment on the other side of the Atlantic that we couldn't get over there in Europe, but I was also doing a little investigative work for another prospect of mine, Celsius. Despite my intention to scout out cooler positioning for Celsius's drinks, I couldn't help but notice something about damn near every retail store or pharmacy we walked into. They all had beauty sections. These weren't small little shelves with a couple cheap lipstick brands on them. On the contrary, they were substantially large and well-stocked areas, some even with special lighting, offering a surprisingly broad mix of products. The seeds of doubt had been planted in my mind, and over the course of the trip they began to germinate. Worse yet, we actually stopped into an Ulta in a strip mall, and we were both disappointed with the experience. The staff weren't very friendly, and the layout was cramped. I had some thinking to do. If Ulta was competing in high-end beauty, e-commerce, and mass market, then I had to wonder what their competitive edge really was, and whether it was enough. Initially, I had believed in this idea of a one-stop shop location for all your beauty needs, but every CVS with a mass-market beauty section was likely sucking sales volumes from Ulta. If someone needs to re-up on a mass-market eyeliner, and the nearest location is Ulta, they may very well end up buying one or two other items at Ulta. But if they can pick it up while they go to collect their prescription at CVS, or a last-minute birthday gift at TJ Maxx, or luggage for their kids at Target, that might be too convenient to pass up. My revelations about female consumer habits around beauty were crumbling. A few days after our return from Thanksgiving, Ulta reported another beat on their Q3 earnings. The stock had reached $440 a share, and I had to make a choice. Ulta had exceeded the pessimistic expectations of analysts rather quickly after my purchase, but that was just lucky. I've made the mistake before of attributing stock price movement as confirmation that my judgment was correct. In other words, sometimes you buy something and it goes up, but that doesn't mean you're right. It just feels like you're right. The same way that being early and being wrong appear the same, being lucky and being right can look identical. It's ego that tells us that we're right when we're just lucky. I've made that mistake before, and I didn't want to make it again. My holding period had only been a few months, and I was absolutely beating the S&P. So I sold half my position, took my gains, and tossed them into a money market as dry powder for a new idea or a sell-off. I sold the other half for a very modest, albeit market-beating, gain in the middle of the tariff tantrum after Ulta beat, yet again, on their earnings. The first half of the cash went into a nanocap idea I stumbled upon thanks to Substack, and the second half went into buying Amazon at its tariff-induced lows. Usually, when I sell something, I don't look back much, nor should I. But with Ulta, I can't help but wonder if I'll regret selling. It's a great company with a loyal customer base. The balance sheet is as clean as it gets, and management doesn't waste capital. Instead, they return excess cash to shareholders in the best possible form: buybacks. On top of that, while they are basically already at full market saturation in the US, there are many other nations where Ulta Beauty stores would likely be a well-received alternative to Sephora or even just a smaller, more localized beauty retailer. There's no reason I can think of that Ulta couldn't expand into Mexico, South America, or Europe. Brazil, for example, has a fast-growing GDP and population. Moreover, Brazil and Argentina are second only to South Korea in plastic surgery per capita. In my mind, a country with high rates of cosmetic surgeries would also have strong demand for beauty supplies. It's hard to let go of a well-run company at a cheap price. Ulta may be slow to expand into new markets for now simply because management is moving slowly and deliberately. If international expansion were to start ticking up, Ulta's revenue and earnings could rise. And suddenly, today's valuation would look quite cheap. I sold because I saw too many headwinds, too much competition on all fronts, and frankly, I found other ideas I liked better. That said, I could see myself buying again if I had some excess cash and the price were to return to the $325 a share I initially bought it for. For me, the Ulta Beauty story is far from over. If they could get just a bit of wind in their sails, the results could be beautiful. Maybe then I'll take the time to learn what a kabuki brush is. Thank you for listening to the Margin of Sanity podcast. Just to say again, all of this information is available totally free on the Margin of Sanity Substack. I'm just getting started and I'm having a lot of fun with this. It's been really cool to see all the people subscribe and comment and engage with me. I'm so used to investing in a complete vacuum of my own mind. And so it's really cool to get the ideas out and hear other people who have bought the position or sold the position or think I'm crazy or whatever. So it's really been fun. I intend to keep going with this because I'm enjoying myself. All right, that's all I got today. See you in the next one.